Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. It's very sad when one of the heirs gets the house and thinks it belongs only to her. The other heirs were not happy about this. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. My aunt refuses to vacation with her own money. So my aunt has always been the favorite kid, to the point where my grandmother always called me with my cousin's name. While she was still alive, my aunt and her family spent the summer with her, taking care of her. The thing is, that house was property of all siblings, and my mom and this aunt's husband in equal parts. It's in a town near the sea where my grandmother was born. This means we were paying for her holidays. They even did one of those exchange with another flat. A total stranger came here while they went to that stranger's house. They didn't even ask for permission. The thing is, my grandmother recently died. She went there this summer too, weeks after my grandmother's death. She refuses to sell the apartment. She refuses buying it whole. She refuses my parents selling to them their parts. She wants us to keep paying for her holidays. This is nothing new, but still astonished me how low she can fall. Like when my parents bought their house, it was also near the sea, and she complained because there wasn't room for them in it. She did something similar to my uncle when he sold his house. It was too big for him and his wife, but only my aunt liked to impose herself and her family there. And our second story. This apartment is not good enough by our luxury lifestyle standard. This all happened 5 years ago while some of my friends were still in tourism college. How it works in my country is that you need to have a practical exam to literally spend your summer vacation working as a semi-intern paid under minimum wage, though it's tourism, so they got to work on vacation kind of. Their job title was something in the lines of hose representative. Agency would make contracts with small apartment owners, usually 5 to 15 rooms, and they would resell their apartments in some tourist arrangements. Job of my friends was to basically show guests around and be on 24/7 call if any of the guests ever needed anything. So in perspective, houses were scattered around the city, even cities, and it was sometimes very hard to get by them, especially as agency was run by, as always, fat, greedy guy who didn't really care about providing, or rarely provided, any means of transportation. So when just 2 guests would need something, it would take you an hour just to walk from point A to point B. So how one day to operation would look for them. They had income of new guests 2 times a week, I think. An agency would usually transport people by plane and buses, so it would be just one big group. This is your apartment, there is store, there is beach, call me if you need anything, easy as that in 90% of the time. Though there was other more damaging group or self-transport group, how they called them. Those people were coming with their own cars or whatever, and they would usually have time windows like in hotels. Check-in time from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Only difference, those houses don't have receptions. My friends were basically one. So timetable was kinda more for them, so they know they will be welcoming guests from 12 to 4. I know all this as my friends invited me to get there, as it was a tourist location with sea and it was really nice. Free stay as they had a spare bed in their apartment. I only had to spend money on food and nightlife. Also, I was kinda shadowing my friends while they were doing their work and usually eavesdrop from just pure boredom. So one day, they had to welcome guests at a very nice villa resort. It's on the outskirts of city. Beautiful place, expensive as F, and some parts were still developing as it was kinda brand new. They had one villa finished and polished, other was missing some cosmetic trivial things on outside, but rooms were amazing. It's 12 to 4 check-in time, and we're waiting for 12 families. All of them are in their rooms till 2 a.m., and we're waiting just for one more so we can go on our ways and have something to eat, as the resort was so expensive we could not afford to eat there. It's 8 p.m. and the last family did not provide their mobile phone. The only contract is a landline number from a different country, 1,400 kilometers, 900 miles away. Again, this is a story from 2016. My friend and I were hungry like street dogs at that point. A third friend joins us. and he has a vehicle this time as he's transporting some goods to another city, so he invited us to go with him so we can buy something to eat out of the resort. Of course, the moment we took a first bite of food, we were called by the 12th family that arrived kinda shortly after. We get back to the resort where they're waiting outside of their room in their SUV. So one thing about SUV, it was really expensive as you can imagine, brand new, but registration read that it was registered in a small town. And if you know that place, you kind of immediately know they're a bunch of apes. Before my friend was even able to say, "Hi, how are you doing?" complaints started firing from top to bottom all around, insults, F-bomb, R-words, horrible language. The dude looks like you took construction worker to Versace and gave him Mr. Beast credit card. His wife was even worse than generic Karen. In combination, it was doomsday. They had a complaint about everything, how everything is half done, and that's not true. How there are, and this is important, cables hanging everywhere that their kids might touch and die. Those are their own words. How fence around the villa was unfinished and there was concrete machine next to it. This was only true though. Who cares? They were not working at that time. It was just chilling in the back. Then he started talking about how he was working contractions his whole life. It was obvious as those people are notorious for selling their father's land and living large after, and how he doesn't want to see construction equipment anywhere near him. After all of that, my friend asked him if he can show us where are those cables sticking. Those aren't cables, by the way. It was radiator pipes not connected to radiator. As you're on summer vacation, I'm pretty sure it'll be hot enough without those. And yeah, that kid can touch them and die was actually teen in her 13 to 15-ish. She was just sitting in a car, and we didn't see her while we were there, bombing us with insults. Even me, who was just bystander, and told him I had nothing to do with this. Conclusion for them is that they are robbed and that this apartment is not good enough by our luxury lifestyle standard. They want their money back, but we can't do anything about that, and the agency office isn't in another city 1 to 1.5 hours drive. They forced us to drive there so they could follow us to speak with the owner. Moment we get there, they start with the same lunatic behavior, yelling, insulting everything, though this time in the middle of a very crowded city. What we failed to mention was that 2016 was a hell of a vacation year, everything was booked to 2017, and we saw people begging for literal shad. We left the agency office before them, we had enough, but one of my friend's colleagues saw them sleeping in the tent beside the beach for the next few days, and we were sure they failed to find anything, so they probably had to turn around and go back home for another 1,400-kilometer ride with 2 borders. You gotta love it when the trash takes itself out. And our last story. My parents took my neighbor's property. Backstory. This happened in the 1990s. My parents own a 40-acre farm in the middle of nowhere. After 5 years, the trailer next door that was on 2.5 acres went up for sale. The dogs were put in a pen to go outside when the new neighbors were moving in. The wife, when she came up the driveway, the dogs went nuts and wanted to tear into her. Our dogs are not violent, but we came later to understand why. My mom, being the nice southern lady that she is, went next door to introduce herself and wanted to know more about the new neighbor. It all seemed well until the wife asked who owned the field behind her house. Mom bashfully replied that it was hers and my dad's. After that, the conversation got awkward and Mom excused herself. A couple of weeks later, Mom and Dad were coming home from shopping and found 3 kids no older than 7 all over our farm equipment. Mom and Dad chased them off to the neighbor house. My mom went over and asked why those kids were over there. They found out it was the neighbor's grandchildren. When Mom told her that they needed to stay away from the farm equipment because one of them will get hurt, she said, "I don't care if. I want that field one way or the other," pointing to the field behind her house. Mom and Dad immediately called the sheriff and an attorney to find out what they could do to protect themselves. They both said that they needed no trespassing signs every 100 feet if possible, especially where the equipment is normally stored and around the property. When Mom and Dad did that, the signs around the property were disappearing. One time, as Mom was coming down from a tree to put it high up where they had to come down on the property to get it down, a gun blast hit the sign above her head, and off in the distance was the wife yelling smugly, "Oops, I guess my gun went off accidentally." Things cooled down only when my brother came home on weekends from college to watch the house. Plus, my parents made their schedule more random during the week, so the neighbors didn't know if anyone was there or not. However, they were still causing problems, like small things disappearing from our yard and them saying that it must be some druggie looking to steal anything for drugs. It was so bad, at one point in time, my mom and dad asked if they could buy their property. The property was worth $50,000 at the time. My parents offered $60,000. The wife said, "Sure, you can buy my property at $250,000, take it or leave it." Even my parents' property at the time was not worth that much, so they left it. However, it took a turn for the better 2 years after the offer. The husband wanted a divorce from his wife. This was a grand total of 4 years of dealing with her. Side note, the husband never met my parents until he moved out a week prior. He said his wife told him that my parents, especially my mom, were crazy, and for his safety needed to stay away from them after my mom's initial visit. When he finally found out that his wife was the one that was crazy, he left her. About a month after that, the husband came back talking about how the divorce was going and wanted to know if they were interested in the property. They told him about the offer 2 years ago, and he said he never heard about it, nor about his grandchildren coming over, hoping that one of them would get hurt, but it didn't surprise him. When we told him how much we offered, he said, "The divorce attorney said that the sale of the house will be split 50-50. I don't care if you offer a nickel just to spite her." A week after that, the wife came to my parents' house asking if they're willing to buy at the $60,000 they offered initially. Mom and Dad said they'll buy it at what the appraiser will say it's worth. Because of the depreciation of the trailer and because the wife didn't take care of the trailer, it was appraised at $40,000. Mom was ready to be spiteful and offer $30,000, but Dad disagreed and said that would be a good restart for a guy that had to live through this for all those years. Could have offered $30,000 and then given the extra $10,000 to the husband. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.